Respect the process, back again this week. I always say back again just because
it is again.
It is.
And we are back.
And, I mean, I feel like it's almost on a week-to-week.
Hello friends is trademarked.
Hello, I can't do. I could never. Yeah, hello friends. And also,
hello, friends.
I mean, you do it. That's not bad.
I've heard him a couple of times.
No, he's pretty good. How you been?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah, doing really good.
Good.
A really enjoyable stretch of basketball games as of late. It's fun.
Winning is fun, as I always tell. I tell my kids that. I'm like, go out and have fun, but remember, winning is fun.
Winning is fun, and with this group, it's really special. I mean, they don't give half rings for championships. We're only at the halfway point of the league race right now, but
it looks good.
And there's a look, man. A week from now, you could be, 2 games back practically with the way everybody's playing, or a game back, I guess. But it's a really, really amazing thing that Nate Oates has done to have to completely rebuild his roster. No, two of the three guys that are back are starters. But you've got 9 new players.
Yeah.
And he has put them back in a spot where, they're leading the league, but the rest of the country is going, uh-oh.
Starting to take notice, which I don't know, but sometimes, Coach Oates does like to fly below the radar, which I can't blame him. I like to do that too. But
come on. I'd say this to him. He talks way too much to be under the radar.
Oh, I know.
It's not too much. It's just sometimes what he says. But he's got a team that has everybody's attention.
Absolutely.
And when you have the success that he's had, not just at Alabama, but at Buffalo and now in Tuscaloosa, and you've done it as consistently as he has, and the way he has, and in the different manners in which he has, it's truly impressive.
Well, and I think also he has brought a good vibe to Tuscaloosa that was much needed. Kind of a stabilizing.
Yeah.
The world is not ending. The sky is not falling.
Yeah.
Things are still good here.
Really good, and can be elite within the league. And I will say, I think Avery Johnson deserves credit for stabilizing, because, in my opinion, Anthony Grant was a good coach. Clearly, you see what he's doing at Dayton, what he had done at VCU, a couple of years that he had in Tuscaloosa. Good coach. Not a personality that fits what that job needs.
Mm-hmm.
So Avery restored belief and energy and goodwill. Nate has taken it to another level has restored what was such a source of pride, where Alabama fans don't fear anybody. You respect Kentucky. Kentucky's historically great. Kentucky could take the next decade off and not play a game and still have more wins than everybody else in the SEC, or more. They're that good historically. But Alabama right now, program-wise, Alabama's not trading with anybody in the SEC. They can't afford to have any hiccups, but I'm just talking program. I'm not even talking team. Okay. Program-wise, they're in an exceptional spot.
Speaking of Kentucky, after Saturday's game, Calipari did not honor all of his obligations post-game, like skipping the radio, that kind of stuff.
He didn't do his own radio deal?
Have you ever been big-timed like that?
Not big-timed.
And by big-timed, I mean like...
Guys blowing it off?
Because they know they can because of who they are.
No, I have not.
I know it's not always Anthony a pleasant conversation.
No, understand. Yeah. Anthony's not media. Anthony at that time, I'm not sure how media savvy he was. Anthony had a philosophy that was, if you're winning, if you're not winning, all the other stuff and smiling and glad handing and all that, it didn't matter. He was very good to me. I had no problems with Anthony. He left us hanging a lot of times, where we had to extend post game before we could. I mean, ridiculously long before we could get him. And that's not a knock on him. It's just he's so locked in, and nobody was stepping up to say, hey, Coach, we got to get you.
His handler wasn't
we
there.
We got to get you.
No.
And or maybe didn't feel like they could for whatever reason. Or maybe they did tell him and he blew it off, like you said. But I never really had a problem. I do appreciate coaches that understand and work with you. Avery always did, certainly. Mark did. I've never worked with a coach. Dwayne Rebold was fantastic. Of course, we didn't lose much at Birmingham
even Coach
Southern.
Saban.
Coach Saban. I mean, it's a given. He understands. You got to do it. He was far better after the kick six than I was. I mean, I was shell shocked. I could not believe that he was better, more composed than I was. Just to be candid, doing that TV show then. But it is. Those are not easy. But I've never had anybody.
Just completely
big timey.
Okay,
big timey.
Completely blow you off. Big timey.
There were a couple of games, I think, with Anthony where he was so long in coming out that we finally just had to say goodnight and wrap it up. Yeah, we got to move on.
Okay, I'm going to kick up some trouble early here because
again, what a shock
every week. We talk about Coach Saban, and the university is going to honor him in some way. Do you think, because I don't like when the field is named after somebody. I don't like Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium.
Okay.
So we have Bryant-Denny Stadium. We know, obviously, the Bryant is from Bear Bryant. The Denny, I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's named after the Denny Chimes because
and technically it is because it's named after the same guy.
Yeah, which for people like me, I did look it up. It's George H. Denny, former president of the university.
Right.
Do you think that they would ever take the Denny away and put Saban up there instead?
You know, I've thought about this some. I hadn't thought about it.
I think his name's going to be on the field somewhere.
I think it's. I think it should be. I think it will be done in a manner in which he approves. I don't know if it will be Nick Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, although that does sound pretty good to me.
It sounds good, but I feel like the field, nobody ever says, oh, are you going to the game on Saban Field? Are you going to the game at Bryant-Denny?
I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with it. And I don't know what the answer is what it should be. But I also don't know that Bryant-Denny Saban Stadium is the worst thing in the world.
I know.
BDS is already used as an abbreviation for Bryant-Denny Stadium. Yeah. And frankly, if you're going to do the abbreviation, you could still go BDS and just drop the stadium.
Yeah. I don't know. I just was.
I look, it's worthy.
Because you already have Denny. You have Denny Chimes, so it's President Denny is being honored.
Yeah.
By a landmark that is spoken of often.
Bryant Saban Stadium. It would take the board doing that, and it's not a bad idea. I think the family would probably. We've just said Bryant-Denny for so long.
Oh, absolutely.
Refer to it as Bryant-Denny. But again, how in the world could you possibly forecast that somebody else
would eclipse
within a span of
our lifetimes?
Yeah, within a span, of 50 years could do what he did.
Because
60 years.
There are not a lot of coaches, and I'm talking all sports. I mean, Coach K has been honored. You've got the Dean Dome.
Yeah.
In a manner that is fitting of their career and what they have done for the university, the fan base, the program, everything.
It would be easy if Paul Bryant had not been, in his era, every bit as good and successful.
What was
I joke all the time.
Because I'm going to plead ignorance here. What was the stadium before Bryant-Denny? Was it just?
It was Denny Stadium.
Denny Stadium, okay.
Yeah, and I forgot, and I did know it one time. And somebody that's a Bama fan,
I'm sure there's historians out there that can,
would be able to go and tell me very quickly what I'm not so sure that field where that's played I'm pretty sure it was Denny Stadium from the start.
Okay.
And I may be, and I apologize.
Again, I had to look up Denny to see it was George.
I knew who it was. I may have struggled on giving you the first name. But Dr. Denny, I believe, was the president when Coach Bryant played at Alabama.
I looked up. He was president from the 20s to the 30s.
So that's
and then
the
he took
time.
over 1 year from like 41 to 42.
Okay. Would that not have been at the time that Coach Bryant played?
I
think
know.
so. I think it would have covered that stretch because it was in tribute to him helping lay the groundwork for Alabama football to become what it was even at that time. And that's the thing. When you look at historical context, it's easy to go Paul Bryant, Nick Saban. But people forget there was history, there was tradition before Coach Bryant, and there were levels of success, including a national championship.
I was going to say, there was a Gene Stallings right there.
There was a Gene Stallings year with a national championship, but every coach at the University of Alabama that got through a season, and I know that Mike Price did not, but every other coach had at least one 10-game season. There are schools where if you have a 10-game season, they'll put your name on the stadium.
Yeah.
Okay? That's just reality. My point is Alabama historically, I know where the down times were, but you can name them so easily.
Because they're the anomaly.
They're, the Ears-Whitworth era. Okay? That 4-year stretch. But prior to that, very good. Obviously, Coach Bryant, Ray Perkins had the 10-win season. Bill Curry had a 10-win season.
Mike Shula.
Mike Shula had a 10-win season. We know what Coach Stallings did, obviously.
Coach Dubose.
Coach Dubose had a 10-win season. Fran had a 10-win season. They all had what would be considered by most programs at least one successful season. At least one.
Historically noteworthy seasons, yes.
Except when you reside on a campus that has two men who collectively or individually won more national championships than any other coach in the history of major college football.
Yeah.
Major college football. I joking, Coach Bryant had his 6, and I jokingly say when I've introduced, and it's appropriate, I'll introduce Coach Saban, a man who's won 7 national titles, 6 that we actually care about.
That's right, yes.
Because one of them did
there
come
was another
wearing
one,
purple
but,
and gold.
Yeah.
But it's phenomenal. 13 national titles just between those two men.
2 men, yes. And that's why I think, again, I don't know that fans would disagree. I don't think that there's a major portion of the fan base that would disagree with putting his name somewhere on the stadium.
Sure.
And figuring out a way. I just, because no one has ever achieved the amount of success that he had at one university.
Yeah.
You think that they would have to find a pretty spectacular way to honor him.
There's no doubt. Because
naming the football, the athletic complex or the football complex.
The field sounds right based on the way many have done. That would be huge.
Again,
and
Vince
I
Dooley,
still don't think,
he won a national championship for Georgia.
He was the standard.
Yes.
At Georgia from a football standpoint until Kirby won 2.
Right.
But you also
the Kirby Smart hedges that surround Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium.
I'm just going to leave it alone. However, I will say that the naming of the field for Coach Saban at first blush almost doesn't seem like it's enough.
And that's why I brought this up, because it really does. Because of who he is and what he has done.
Right.
I think that's the easy one of we're going to name the field after him.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he'd only won 3.
Exactly. If he'd stopped after that, but
if he'd only won 3,
we've
or
already got
5,
a statue of him outside the stadium.
But
so
all the coaches that have won national titles do.
Yeah.
Every coach. And let me tell you, it's not going to be an easy decision.
No. But
it's not going to be an easy decision.
I'm kicking it off. Because
And there's going to be some people that will be upset. I think it'll be a board of trustees decision, but I think it will come upon the recommendation of the athletic director.
But
Greg Byrne will, if it is Greg Byrne that
it will likely
makes
happen,
that call.
I would think in the next 5 years.
I would think so too.
Just while he is
and
still,
it needs to.
I mean,
it should.
He's not that by any means is he in a poor health or a poor condition, but I think that they would want him.
It ought to be done quick.
Yeah.
Because of who the man is. I mean, you did it for Coach Bryant while he was still coaching.
Yeah.
I'm sure Coach Saban didn't want the distraction.
No.
He had qualified for that long before, but I think now that I think it's one, and I'll be honest, I think it's one of those where you have the conversation and go, Coach, we don't want to go against your wishes.
Right.
But we're doing something.
This is what's happening.
You need to understand.
Yeah.
You deserve it. Your players deserve it. The guys who coached and played under you deserve it.
Right.
Because they want to have that point of positivity. They want to be able to recognize. It's a source of pride for them to say,
Can you imagine
I played for that man.
When they do that, the number of former players and former staff, assistants, GAs, everybody that's going to come back?
I almost think it would be fitting to do it if you're going to. Nobody's asked me except you, and you didn't even ask me specifically this, but I think A-Day next year would be the ideal time to do it, because
and you don't want to take away from Coach DeBoer. You
don't want to take away from him.
Right.
You also want to have time to digest everything, do it right. But A-Day next year, to me, seems like the time. And I'll tell you 2 reasons. Number one, it allows more people to be there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take away from the game itself. And to me, in my opinion, all the championships, there's so many memories, there's so many great things. But I will never forget having the privilege of doing the TV. I think it was I can't remember if we did it live or not. But regardless, we did the TV broadcast of his very first spring game. And to look and see them have to open up the upper deck across the way, and to see people file in like just ants covering a picnic. It was amazing to see, and that's when you knew. I felt like it was going to happen anyway, that he was going to be successful. But that's when you knew we're really on to something. And Nick Saban has said himself, that's when I knew where I was and what we could really have. Because if you have 90,000 plus fans, and they would have had more, but the stadium work was still being done and they couldn't get more people in. You could have, I forgot how many people were turned away that day. They'll never know the exact count, but it was a lot. That's when it turned.
Well, and, for measuring purposes, Denny's 5 letters and Saban's 5 letters. So they could just kind of rearrange. And while we're talking about Coach Saban, I don't know if you saw these comments last week. They were made by former Georgia running back James Cook, who plays for the Buffalo Bills currently. And he was saying that the only reason Alabama got into the playoff was because Nick Saban retired. He told USA Today that we were supposed to be in the playoffs this year, meaning Georgia. If Georgia was in the playoffs, we win it all. I just feel like they knew Saban was fixing to retire, so they tried to sneak him in one.
Yeah, I saw it. Stupid.
It is stupid.
Stupid and it's wrong. And if they're kind enough to give me another SEC championship ring as they've been nice enough to do whenever. Alabama's won one since I've been a part of the broadcast. If it'll make him feel better, I'll be sure to have that inscribed on the inside of my ring.
Or let him try it on.
Let me tell you what, the ring is so big, there's probably room for it, James. So I'm sure we'll work that in.
Back to current football and Coach DeBoer. Not only is he having to recruit back the players that were on the roster last year, also recruiting players.
Like every coach in America is having to do.
I feel like he's having to recruit his coordinators as well, because word broke last week that Coach Ryan Grubb, had been in consideration for the offensive coordinator position for the Seattle Seahawks, which regionally, geographically, that's their stomping ground.
Right.
He's developed a reputation enough that it would seem like a somewhat natural fit, since that is what he does that's what he's done for Coach DeBoer. But Seattle's not filled that position, but obviously Coach Grubb is still out recruiting for Alabama.
Right.
But I mean, you kind of feel like Coach DeBoer is having to circle his arms around what's his.
Look, college football's in a dangerous situation right now. There are coaches around the country that are head coaches that are taking professional assistants jobs because they're tired of all of the lack of governance.
Yeah.
Or
the rules are there are no rules. Unless the NCAA says there are rules.
Unless they randomly wake up whoever the four people are in wherever the league office.
And then they're going to make an announcement that there are rules.
Yes.
We had a super secret meeting about it.
Yeah. Did you ever see Tombstone?
Yo, one of my favorite.
You remember the sheriff, I think is what he was. He was
Sheriff Meehan. Yeah.
Who tried to dress up real pretty and act like he was the law, and nobody thought he was the law.
Right. I think
that's the NCAA.
Because they were trying to it was right before the big shootout.
Yeah.
And he's like, "It's okay, man. I've just gone and spoken to the Rough Riders.
Yeah.
Everybody's okay. We're going to just go ahead and shut things down now."
And he goes, Wyatt Earp, you're under arrest. I ain't got time to be arrested.
He says, "I'm not going to let you arrest me today, Meehan."
Yeah, that's exactly right. You got the line better than I do.
No, that's when I start.
That's the NCAA.
Yeah.
They're Meehan.
Getting back to it, they're almost like a fly that just they'll swat it away and it'll come back half an hour later.
Well, here's the thing. If they were that persistent, they would be more effective. They just randomly show up out of nowhere. They're not there when you need them.
Right. Yeah.
But they randomly show up, much like Meehan in the movie.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't.
When it's convenient for them.
Yeah.
But I agree. I do think that.
And it doesn't really matter, except they can kind of flex their muscles, whatever muscles they may have.
Between the lack of governance, as you said, between the lack of any sort of parameters, rules, enforcement, and also that we keep referring to it as the Wild Wild West, but it is running coaches off.
Yeah.
Without question.
No doubt.
But as far as we know, Coach Grubb is still planning on coaching in Tuscaloosa.
So he's really good, obviously knows what Kalen DeBoer wants done. However, I'm glad you brought it up. For people that are concerned, and you need to understand, I'm not for 1 second saying that assistant coaches are not important. They're incredibly important, okay? But you hired Kalen DeBoer. You hired him for his system. Mm-hmm. He was the OC at Indiana when Kane Womack was the defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. And that's why Kane Womack is now with Kalen DeBoer.
Right.
He's running the defense. But as Nick Saban always talked about, no matter who the coordinator was, they are the coordinator.
Right.
They bring in ideas. They do work with the offense. But it's the Alabama offense.
And
it's
Kevin
the
Steele was running Alabama's defense.
On the front end and the back end. And I think Joe Pendry was the first OC, was he not? I know he was the line coach. I think he was or is Major Applewhite. I can't remember. But anyway, it was.
I had a newborn at the time. You're going to have to give me some grace on that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was a newborn at the time, I think.
Gosh.
I wasn't, relatively speaking, I was. They the guy that it all falls on is Kalen DeBoer. Mm-hmm. So while I certainly believe that having Coach Grubb would be huge and would help the transition, it's not like we're going, okay, well, we've hired the wrong coach.
That's it.
And we're not going to win.
We're not even going to have a team next year. That's it,
right.
guys. Sorry.
We're going to have to just, when you punt to us, we're just going to give it back
That's
and
right.
play defense.
Let's
and
go.
They can score. No, it certainly helps the first spring practice. It helps all of the initial things on the offensive side go smoother.
Well, just
that Coach DeBoer
stability.
wants.
It just creates the stability of what
it is. There's no doubt. But you certainly understand. It's the region of the United States. You don't know family dynamic. Again, with everything that's happening in the college game right now, if you can make similar or better money and you're not having to recruit, or if you're going from the professional mindset, I got Washington as the OC to the national championship game. Mm-hmm. If I can help resurrect the Seahawks and do things offensively with them, I can write my own ticket as to maybe NFL head coach or college head coach. So, what if I go and do a great job at Seattle for 4 years and the new coach at Washington falls on his face? You don't think they're going to come back to him and try to bring him back to, not bring him back to Seattle, but move him back across town to be the guy? Of course they will. Yeah. So that's what he's leveraging. It's not, do I want to be at Alabama or not? It's what's best for my family and my career, and it's a great position to be in. Yeah. And I don't know, but I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that his agent might be Jimmy Sexton as well.
That'd be crazy.
Don't know. I'm just guessing.
Real quick before we move on, is Cedric still in Alabama?
I don't know.
Because I think that's a critical piece of the puzzle that people want to know.
Advice on Cedric? Cedric, I am told, is still very much in Tuscaloosa and is still very much
because he's he
busy.
Knows where the staples are. If you run out of he knows
where the bodies are buried.
He knows where the shovels are kept, the bodies are buried, and I'd have to think that he is instrumental.
Cedric Burns, I think, will still be involved. Whether you will see him with Coach DeBoer as much as you saw him with Coach Saban, I cannot speak to that. I honestly don't know. I wouldn't be shocked. Heck, Coach Saban's, they're not going to have Coach Saban just, all right, here's an office for you. You're on your own. Answer your own phones, Coach. I mean, there's people that will be helping Coach in whatever role he has. What would have been
interesting is when we got that video of Coach Saban boogie boarding, if you saw Cedric there, right next to him, making sure that he's got everything he needs. Okay.
That's so good.
Okay. Let's move on to basketball because Alabama is back in the AP top 25, even though I love that Coach Oates does like them flying below the radar. But when you
says that, but you want to be right.
When you're playing as well as they are, it's tough to do. 16-6, 8-1. They lead the SEC right now. Once again, a hell of a week. I want to go back to that game in Athens because you could not have dug a much deeper hole for them to get out of. It was a remarkable second half. And what I really want to do is lead that into then the way they played Saturday against Mississippi State, coming out and just
from the start,
pretty much strangling them and not letting them get a foothold.
Yeah, and to your point about the state game, Nate, I went there on the post game and I said, great start. He goes, well, we didn't have a great start. He goes, after the under 16 timeout, we really picked it up, and they did. But from that point forward, they were better. They were better in the first 8 minutes, even though they weren't better in the first 4. In the Georgia game, though, they were not good. They were getting killed on the boards. I mean,
first half. If you'd turned it off after at halftime,
got out rebounded by 20.
Yeah,
I think in the first half, they got outscored. I think they were down 17-2 at the second media timeout.
I was going to say, I think their biggest
deficit was 16 with 22 minutes to go, but I think they were down 15 at the under 12 media timeout.
I remember turning it on. It was like 17-4.
Yeah, it was like 7-4 at the first media timeout, or 7-2 at the first media timeout, and then it was maybe 17-2. It was bad.
It was awful.
It was really bad, but phenomenal the second half, and it was not all Mark Sears. But Mark Sears had 6 points, I think, with 10 minutes to go, 10 or 11 minutes to go, and once again finished with 23.
Yeah.
He was unreal. Rylan Griffin hit a couple of big buckets, but Grant Nelson had the 2 biggest buckets of his Bama career back to back. It's a tie game, under 4 minutes, I think, and Grant hits a wide open 3 to give you a lead. You get a steal or a turnover on the other end. You come back to the other end. It's to him again. It wasn't a rush shot, but there was no hesitation to it, and he hits another one. And I lost my ever-loving mind, and it was fun.
I was listening to you.
But you take that from a scoreless game, a tie game, to a 6-point lead back-to-back from a guy who had not been shooting it great. And he does that in that situation.
Yep.
It was huge. It reminded me, even though it was not quite as dramatic, and it was only 2 buckets as opposed to 3, there was a stretch in Fayetteville last year where the Razorbacks had pulled to within 2 after Bama had led by as many as 12. And it's a 2-point game, and there's, I think, just under 4 minutes to go. And, it wasn't Brandon Miller. It was Noah Clowney. Hits a 3 to make it a 5-point game. We go the other end of the floor. Arkansas turns it over. I think lost it out of bounds. Bama comes the other end. Brandon Miller hits a 3. They come to the other end. Bama gets a steal. They rush to the other end, and Brandon hits another 3. And it was bam, bam, bam. 3 threes in a span of no more than 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And Pig people got real quiet.
Yeah. Well,
at that point. It made an 11-point lead with about 2.5 minutes to go, and it was over.
Yeah.
And they knew it.
Well, and this morning, when I was listening to the Next Round Boys, and Jim was talking about how Griffin missed a 3. Mm-hmm. Alabama gets the rebound. They kick it back out to him. Shoots again, misses the 3. Kick it back out to him for a 3rd time, and makes it.
Yeah.
They are not a live by the 3, die by the 3, but it sure does help their game when they're falling.
A lot of people say that, and I understand where you're coming from. But there are a lot that say all they do is jack up threes. No, their offense is to drive to the basket, and if the layup is not there, you kick to the corner,
because
and then
the defense has collapsed on you at that point.
Absolutely, and depending on who it is and how they play you, you drive again.
Yeah.
But if they don't come out on you, you got an open 3.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of passing, and it's about tempo and pace. And look, these guys work on it. It's not a shot that they don't practice hundreds of times.
Yeah.
In the span, sometimes per day.
Right.
But certainly in the span of a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the guys who work on it the most and who are called on to do that, which is almost everybody on the roster,
right,
by
exactly,
the way. It isn't everybody,
yeah.
but almost everybody to at least be a threat. It's not like we think of when we roll out, we just shoot one. No, it's worked on.
Right.
It's what they do. It's who they are.
It's the
They're
offense.
recruited.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's not something he just drew up and said, y'all go shoot a 3. It's what they do. It's who they are. And that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So, and if it doesn't go, sometimes it just doesn't go in.
Yeah.
But by the way, if you're driving to the basket and you're getting stopped because they get over in position or they're blocking everything, you better make a shot from somewhere else.
Yeah.
He doesn't kick you out of the game if you take a mid-range jumper, but you need to hit it. You need to prove that you can make it.
Right.
And it needs to be under certain circumstances. If you're driving and you see that they've, collapsed and it's in flow, in rhythm, it's open, and you've worked on that shot, then you take it.
Right.
But they don't take many. That's true. They don't. But man, they're never out of a ball game.
No.
Because of the capability that they do.
No,
have.
they proved that. I want to give a shout out to the Hampton Inn in Pensacola, right there on I-10, because they had the best choice of channels. They had the SEC network. So I had been driving. I was listening to the first half. I was able to get in. Not many hotels that you can find that have the SEC network. So I want to give a shout out to them.
Hamptons normally do that.
As
someone who stays at a lot of Hampton Inns in the
I was very grateful
footprint.
for that. So Wednesday, travel to Auburn, 6 o'clock tip. That is going to be
tough.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be obviously.
That was a huge win for Auburn.
Yeah.
Huge win for Auburn to come back in a very tough environment against a good Ole Miss team. And much like Alabama pulled away late, I mean, Auburn was getting popped for about 25, 30 minutes in that game, and the next thing I see, they're up double digits.
Yep.
They're good. And they're playing better. That's a shot of confidence. Let me tell you, it'll be one of the best games in the country when Alabama and Auburn play on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And I say that, I don't know how the game's going to finish, but it's one of the best matchups.
Yeah.
Because Auburn's still really good, and Alabama is the league leader, but it's only by a game.
Right.
Auburn don't want to. You don't want to lose to Alabama if you're Auburn, and vice versa. But you're sitting there where if you lose, now you're 2 games back of Alabama as you start the back half of conference play.
Auburn brings a 7-2 record in conference.
And Bama's got a tiebreaker on you.
Yeah.
So that doesn't bode well for you if you lose. But after you go to Auburn,
got LSU coming into Coleman on Saturday night.
They're far better than they have been. It's a game Alabama should win, and I think they will. But it's why it's so big. If you can get those 2 ball games somehow, you get Auburn on the road and come back. You still may only have a 1-game advantage over South Carolina. And again, everybody sleeping on South Carolina. They're in a great spot, but Tennessee is legitimately that good, and they come to Tuscaloosa on March 2nd. Bama's got Auburn and LSU, and then a good Texas A&M team and a dangerous Florida team coming in before you go to Kentucky, to Ole Miss, Tennessee at home, at Florida.
It's a bit of a murderer's row there.
And then hopefully finishing off what's left of the barbecue when the Razorbacks come in on a Saturday for an 11 a.m. tip on March 9th.
Is that the last regular season game?
That's the last regular season game. You've got a lot of major pitfalls.
Potential.
All through that, potentially, for all of those. And at the same time, if you can have another 2-0 week, you're in a great spot. But again, you can't get size for the rings just yet.
Saw
even if you do.
Nick Pringle sitting on the bench in street clothes.
Yep, I think he'll be back. Is
Saturday.
My guess.
He didn't make the trip with the team to Athens,
Correct.
and that's one of those games where you almost wish he was sitting there saying, "Your team could really use you right now."
Yeah,
like your team really could use you being out on the court.
And it's big that they did it without him.
And
not that he would have been happy about it. I don't mean that, but it does send a message. They found a way to get it done without him, and then they looked phenomenal
without him,
and him sitting right there.
Yeah, and Coach Oates has said this is nothing off the court. This has nothing to do with behavior that he's exhibited outside of basketball. He said he needs to decide if he wants to be a part of this program with some of the decisions and how he conducts himself, and clarified that it has been in practices and games, and that's where the decision lies.
Exactly. Nick's a good kid. Everything that I know about Nick Pringle, good kid.
Yeah.
Nice, polite. Saw him the other night before the game, shook my hand. It's great to see him back. When you invest what players invest, but you don't get the playing time you think you should get, you think that you deserve, it can be, I don't care what level you're playing. It's a shot, it's a blow. But you've got a decision to make as to how you're going to handle it. And you can either be a great teammate and cheer other guys on.
Yeah.
And even if you are doing that, you can still pout and be a distraction. You can't afford to have a distraction when you're trying to win the whole thing. The league, and now Alabama's expectation is beyond even the league, but taking care of the league first. You can't have those things. And by the way, you got, I'm not going to say Noah Clowney 2.0, but baby Noah Clowney and Jaron Stevenson playing fantastic.
Right.
Mo Diabate's getting it figured out, too.
Those two, yeah.
You also have Muhammad Waigi, who's able to give you some key minutes, even though he's not able to go the full deal. He's the first half minutes he gave Alabama in the game at home the other night against Mississippi State were huge.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm leaving a couple of guys out on that, but they're getting multiple players that are getting minutes that Nick Pringle would have gotten.
Yeah.
That he's going to have to work now to take. He's going to have to show why he should get the. You thought you were struggling to get playing time before. Yeah. These guys are really playing good now. Yeah. So, you can get on the train or you can watch it head down the track, and maybe, you can be a part of potentially 2 SEC championships, or you can have one and see the guys that you were with all through boot camp, all through preseason camp, all through everything you have to go through to this point, do it without you, or you can be a part of helping. And especially as a senior, it's going to impact you for the rest of your life. I'm not saying Nick can and won't be successful, whether he's a part of the team or not, but it's the type of life things life lessons you learn being a part of a team, being in sports, that I hope he is going to learn from, because it's going to help him so much 10, 20 years from now, more so than he will help Alabama.
Yeah. Well,
even though he can.
And after last year, with everything that team and Coach Oates went through, with off-the-court distractions and having to try and create a vacuum for his team to be able to operate within.
And amazingly did.
And did. He's not going to put up with stuff this year.
Nope.
He knows what it
patience.
takes. Coach Oates is an exceptional coach. He knows what it takes to get to the next level. And if guys are not buying into the system, listen, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There are other guys behind you
Too
that
bad.
are. So, okay. This was a very refreshing Coca-Cola. I'm sure your Dasani was equally, equally refreshing.
This ain't tap water, folks.
No, not around here. It's not. So we'll listen for you on the call on Wednesday night down in Auburn.
Look forward to it.
And then,
no, I'm not. Even if we win, I'm not looking forward to it. And that's not meant disrespectfully. That's how tough Auburn folks make it for their opposition.
And then,
there's one good thing. There's one good thing about the trip. Hopefully, two. Hopefully, it'll be a win. But the other good thing is I get to see my friend David Housel.
See?
Get to have lunch with David Housel that day.
Got to make chicken salad sometimes.
And might get chicken salad because we're at Jason's Deli.
Or lemonade,
either
one. Either one. So Wednesday on the call with Auburn and Alabama. Saturday on the call when LSU. Y'all go down to Baton Rouge. Yeah. Do you? No?
Yeah, we do. Thank you, Coach.
I don't.
No wonder. I'm sitting here talking about a home game. And,
it's okay.
And we are.
It's okay.
In Baton Rouge.
But yes, so, we look forward to it because we're going to need a hearty
and a bunch of, there will be an enemy territory, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. And for Chris Stewart, listening, of course, on the Crimson Tide Radio Network, I'm Kelly Hunter, who will just be here again next week. Hopefully, we thank everybody from Disrupt the Media, and you can always listen to the Next Round guys each morning and afternoon and on demand whenever you need them. Have a great week, and I think that's it for us.
It is.
That's all I can think of. Have a great week. Take care.